Hi everyone, really excited to be here and glad to welcome Ranjan here. Will be a good discussion, just sharing his views, understanding a little bit about what's going on in the industry and how digital is impacting retail. Ranjan, how you doing? Long time we spoke. Lots has happened. I don't know which way we are in currently, but will be good to get your view on what's going on and how it's impacting the industry.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Satyan. It's been a long time since we've chatted, and I think it's the industry is shaping up very differently than what we had anticipated when we last met. The last 2 years have been a roller coaster ride for all of us. I'm sure we've learned a lot, we've experienced a lot, and seen a lot. Some of them were not even good to believe, but then I'm sure we've now started accepting the fact that this is real, and this is the way how life is going to be.
Yeah, yeah. So, if I rewind the clock to say pre-COVID, and while I am privy to some of your digital journeys, will be good for our viewers to understand. How were you looking at it pre-COVID? How much of acceleration has COVID specifically brought in? So let's cover the COVID theme first and get it out of the way, and then let's get to how do you think customers are reacting? How do you think the market is reacting? But if you can kind of dial back a little bit to say pre-COVID, what was your digital strategy during COVID? How are you dealing with it? And of course, we understand we've been extremely agile given the ups and downs of COVID as well.
Yeah, so certain pre-COVID, post-COVID, there are a few things which have changed, but not much has changed in terms of the digital strategy because we had already embarked a lot on the digital strategy
Right.
and on the digital journey. So a lot of our initiatives had already started taking shape even before COVID. It's just that COVID could have expedited a few of them in the scheme of prioritization here and there, but then we were always committed towards the digital journey about towards making the whole organization more digital, towards moving supply chain towards to say, and I think COVID has pushed us a little more towards it, but whether it has pushed us to change our track in terms of our digital journey, I don't think so. It's just that it has reprioritized a few things and expedited a few things here and there, especially because the stores were shut for a long duration, and some of the digital businesses became much more important at certain point of time, and hence a lot of investment started going there, a lot of focus started happening there. But people were not available physically. Hence, a lot of processes needed to be digitized, which were not there earlier, and there was never a need for doing that. A lot of ways of working changed because of COVID, because people were available there, but they were not available physically, and hence they were doing a lot of things online. They were doing a lot of things digitally. Uh, Meetings became digital. That was the biggest change which actually came in, where we were so used to doing a physical meeting, sitting across the table in a meeting room. Everything became pretty much on a Microsoft Teams or a Zoom meeting, or it became a way of life, and we were connected onto our laptops throughout the day. That was the hard part of it, but I think it also helped us to learn a lot of tricks, and a lot of people realize that these tools definitely help you in expediting a few things. It did slow down on few decision makings as well, where you could sit across the table and quickly discuss and close a few things very quickly. On a digital meeting, it took maybe a couple of meetings to actually uh, conclude on things. But I think we've learned the art, and people have evolved and come through this situation. And I think people have accepted that this is a way of life, no matter what it is. Post COVID as well, even if things normalize, a lot of these things are going to be there. They're going to be real, and they're going to stay there. They're not here to just for the COVID sake.
Right, and Ranjan, kind of echo what you're saying because again from looking at from the outside, and I'm privy to some of the journeys that you've undertaken. So one of the first, one of the few to understand this much earlier. And as you said, I think COVID has probably just accelerated and reprioritized a little bit of what your journey looks like. Now, if I look at the customer, right, and that's at the center of what all of us do. What is your sense of So a two-part question here in terms of what is your sense of how the customer itself has changed, and then second is what has been your reaction to this changing customer.
Yeah, so I think the customer has changed in many ways, in fact, because at least in fashion space, it always used to be that touch and feel thing, which was always there. People would love to go to the malls, would love to go to the stores, touch and try out clothes, and then buy them. I think it became imperative for them that uh, they could also buy a lot of these things digitally, and still it was far more easier than earlier, where they, if they had to return, they would have to go back to the store and return it. Here it was far more easier, where they were sitting at the comfort of the home or wherever they are, and they were easily able to shop it through any of the devices that they were using, uh, get it returned at any point of time without any questions asked, and it was so much of more convenience which actually came into play. uh, Adoption of uh, commerce, adoption of digital commerce became much more prevalent even in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, which is a big change which has happened. So it is e-commerce or digital commerce has not just now remained in the tier 1 cities, in the larger cities. It has also penetrated big time into the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, and across all age groups. So the big change also that came in was it did not, the adoption was not only in the young population or the Gen X or Gen Z, but it also started moving a lot more towards uh, people who are above 50, people above 60, who found it still easier because they did not have an option but to shop digitally. So I think the behavior changed, the adoption of digital technologies changed, uh, the ways of making payments, digital payments changed big time. The and that has opened a whole lot of opportunities for marketeers and retailers, where now there's a very very large population which is now available there, who you could service sitting remotely.
So Ranjan, yeah, it was good to hear your views on the changes that we saw both in the customer and how the customer is engaging with you. What do you think are the challenges, or what are the top challenges that you faced given this external changing environment and the external changing customer?
So I think quite a few challenges it brought to us, because we were not fully prepared for this kind of an evolution or this kind of a revolution, to say, in the digital space. Our processes were not completely geared up, our systems were not geared up, our people were not geared up, because all of this used to work in silos. There were team of people, bunch of people who were working on the digital stories, who were working on the digital channels. They were exposed to this, and they were getting prepared slowly and gradually for the bigger ask. There were some of the other functions which were ready and in some way or the other, but not the entire organization. The entire organization was not aware of it, because 85% of our business was still coming from offline. And there was no reason for everyone else to focus on this. But this suddenly doubled up, and doubled up within no time. So it started putting pressure on everything, anything that you talk of, right from people to processes, to your supply chain, to your financial systems, to everything, in terms of how do you gear up to meet that demand, how do you gear up to do that fulfillment, and to top it all, the challenges in the supply chain itself was humongous. There was so much of disruption within supply chain. To overcome those challenges and still meet these demands was a big ask that started coming to us, right from the backward supply chain to the forward supply chain.
Right. No, so let's understand, of course, and it's a whole host of challenges that you're grappling with. How did you go about prioritizing, or is there some method to prioritizing? Let's address problem A first, then go to problem B, or was it just okay? There's the gamut of changes so much that we really need to be agile in terms of meeting what these challenges are.
I think agility was the need of the hour. You couldn't sit back and say that we are only going to do these two things or these four things, as we used to do, and you couldn't create a very very large project and say this is a 4 years project and you will continue doing this. You had to break down everything, and you had to prioritize amongst everything in terms of saying what is the immediate need. what does the organization needs today, what does the organization needs 1 year down the line, what does the organization needs 3 years down the line, and break that down in terms of saying whatever can deliver benefits today, from improving your customers interaction, customer engagement, and customer fulfillment side, they become a priority. uh, Whatever was important to expand the reach to the customer, that became a priority. Whatever was needed to service all of this, or make all these entire process efficient, that became a priority. So maybe if you ask me, did we start doing larger projects, which would deliver us benefits 2 years down the line? We said no, they can wait for it. What we did was, we did not put them completely on hold, but we broke them into pieces, smaller pieces, and we said, let's break them into smaller pieces and start creating multiple tracks of it, because you can't run one single track. There are multiple things, and again, as the theme of this session again talks, everything would have to converge at one point of time. Convergence became important, and there were multiple teams working on different aspects of the business, different aspects of the supply chain, different aspects of the merchandising side, different aspects of procurement. They were all coming together to converge at different stages of the journey.
No, it's right, Aranjan. I think convergence is an important theme. I think a lot of organizations, and you've been at the forefront of leading convergence to deliver market solutions. You spoke about people, process, and technology, all three not being ready. Right? I'll pick the people theme first, which is to say that how did you go about educating your people, or what was the feel like within the organization itself? Because people were dispersed as well. Okay, it wasn't as easy wherein you could get them together in a room and get that managed so that they could be excited enough to pick up a project and then deliver it. So what was that experience like, and how easy was it for people to see the change and then embark with you on this journey?
I think it was never an easy task to bring everyone together, because people were worried. People were not sure how things are going to span out. How is it going to change their life? They were worried about their near and dear ones. They were worried about the security. They were worried about the jobs. They were worried about so many more things. It was all about going back to them and saying, "Hey, don't worry. We will stand together and we will overcome this challenge. We will get through this." That was the first. That reassurance was the most important thing to be done from people's perspective, and then being able to uh, stay with them on a day-to-day basis. So it was not about meeting them once a week or meeting them once a month and doing your reviews. It was about daily catch-ups. It was about daily stand-up calls that you were doing with everyone. And the first thing to start was not about the project or not about the technology or not about the work. It was about, how are you? How is your family? Hope everyone is safe. Hope everyone is good. Do you need something? And I think that reassured them to stay together and stick together. And it was all about allaying their fears, the external fears that were there, and then bring them together and then explaining them what was needed of them. It was also about telling them, going back and telling them, hey, these are the things and we play a very, very critical role, especially when I talk of the technology team. We've always realized, and we've always known that in terms of adversity, technology always starts playing a much, much bigger role. And we had to stand up and raise our hands and say, hey, we are there. We'll be able to deliver it, and we will stand for it. And I think that discussion or that conversation started leading to many more ideas, many more thought processes. I remember that people in the office, when we used to work out of the office, I would not interact with almost everyone and anyone on a day-to-day basis. This gave me an opportunity to listen to everyone in the team. And it was not about just my direct reportees. I was talking to many more people within the team, the last guy within the team. And he was also open, and he these guys also came up with some brilliant ideas that I was never heard of. Because these guys have a very, very, some of these guys will have a very, very different thought process. They would have a very different experience and understanding of the situation. And I think bringing all of them together and sticking together to the plans, yes, life in the initial phases became a little difficult because most of the meetings were stretching far too long, because it was also about getting used to the work from home culture. Uh, we were we were not pretty much ready from a work from home culture perspective. So getting people or getting managers to align to the thought saying, hey, there is, whether you're traveling or you're not traveling, whether you're coming to the office, you're not there, you need to be working within the boundaries of those timelines that you have. You cannot be doing meetings early morning and you cannot be doing meetings late evening. That was one education that needed to be done to the managers. To top it all, it was also a very, very important aspect to go back and tell the manager saying, hey, maybe the person might not be available 8 hours at a stretch as he used to be available in the office, because there are many more things that he has to finish in his daily routine at home as well, because now they don't have a maid, they don't have the support system that they were so much used to. They have to do and manage everything by themselves. They have the kids, they have the family that they need to manage, and hence they might not just be available. So I think education was very, very important to bring everyone together, and the ways of working in terms of work from home.
Okay. And then if I move to the other two pillars, right? So both process as well as technology, and we know that they go hand to hand for any transformation program that you may entail. One question that would always get asked is, before investing in any technology or any transformation, businesses would ask, and specifically of IT, what is the ROI? Why are we investing in this? Do you think that question changed, or do you think it was equally important? And did the answer change, specifically given COVID?
I think people started becoming more receptive. People became more open to change. People became uh, far more open to accept that, yes, there could be things that you might try out. You have to try out and do things and experiment, and a few things might just not work. So experimentation became the game, actually, and people were ready for it. ROI, yes, to some extent, ROI, the questions around ROI still existed, but the whole perspective of looking at ROI changed as well. It was not just about a uh, clearly a monetary ROI that one would actually start looking into. There were many other aspects that started coming into play when you started talking about ROI. It was also about how do you ease people's life? How do you make people's life better? How do you the questions around how do you simplify things, because many a times we are very, very comfortable overly complicating very simple things, and I think that became very, very necessary where people were asking the right questions.
Interesting view. We've always spoken about the impact. So of course, yes, your company and every company that we speak to got impacted. Were there enough conversations going on within other players in the industry? Were there any learnings that you were leveraging from anything that you were hearing outside? Did any forums creep up where people came together? Did the industry as a whole kind of step up and say, okay, let's try and address this problem together, or was the fight still in isolation?
No, I think the industry started coming together in a big, big way, because at least in retail, what we've seen is different forums which used to be there even before COVID. They used to be there. They were not as effective as it started, and uh, people were ready to discuss common issues like rentals with malls. How do you come together and go to the malls and talk to them together and create one common understanding across all retailers? Simple things like when do you put up your end of season sale together? What are the timelines to start your end of season sale? Uh, it was not about I want to do it alone and I want to make the biggest benefit out of it. Uh, Creating a common ground for everyone, creating there were a lot of commonalities across within the industry, across retailers, different retailers, and everyone was trying to come up with one large issue or a few larger issues that they could solve together, because they always knew that they couldn't fight that battle all alone. They had to come together to fight that battle. So I think a lot of these forums became very, very important, and they brought in a lot of perspective, a lot of views from different people, different organizations, and started creating a way of working for multiple the overall industry, and it shaped the industry in a very, very different way.
No, that's really good to hear, Ranjan. If I go back on the people theme, right, one part of it we spoke about how difficult was it to get people to adapt to working, right? Second thing, of course, probably a much larger set of people got exposed to newer technology transformation, not just the IT team, right? But a lot of other elements of the organization. What's your view, and how are you looking at this entire, and if I may just call it an upskilling program? So how are you looking at that? Are you starting with a particular set of people? How do you want to embed the culture of technology and innovation within your organization?
So I think even before COVID, what we had done was we had, and fortunate that we did that. Almost about a year before COVID started, we did a large session, strategy session with the key leadership team, and we spent almost 2 days trying to figure out what is it that is going to take the organization forward. And one of the big pillars was technology adoption that we listed down, and we started. Passing that message or talking about it within the entire organization, and the theme was about how could you adopt technology and how could you find technology to solve your problems rather than trying to find alternate ways of solving a problem. Not about going ahead and saying, hey, if can I do this with a piece of technology? Is there a technology which exists that can solve this particular problem? And we started talking about it almost about a year before COVID came in. I think that helped. That whole initiative helped us in terms of saying uh, technology adoption was not just about uh, acquiring or going ahead and saying, hey, I want to buy this technology, particular piece of technology. This is going to solve a problem, and just look at those set of people who are getting impacted by the technology and bring them to the into a forum and educate them. It was all about pushing the entire organization to start thinking in ways and means how their life could improve, how could they do things more efficiently, how could they do things better, and what more could they do. It was also about doing more.
Right, right. And we've also seen a whole, I'm just going to call it an explosion of sorts in this, retail tech or consumer tech set of whole new startups that are, now very, very well funded as well. How have you gone about designing and implementing your technology transformation journey with convergence as the theme, right? Are you developing talent in-house? Are you partnering with this ecosystem? Are you looking at consultants? How are you doing it? And then I'll also ask you a second question of say somebody who's starting this journey. What would your advice to them be? But first, it will be good to hear your views on how are you managing your journey.
So maybe I might be called a slightly old school thought person, but I still firmly believe that you need to have the brains in house. You need to have the people. If you're embarking on a transformation journey, you need to know what you are jumping into. And hence, you need to have the people, the right set of people, the right set of skill sets or the knowledge to be able to drive that change. Uh, does that mean that you do everything in house? Not really. Uh, which means that you need to have the key set of people who could be driving that transformation, who could be subject matter experts, or maybe if they are not subject matter experts, you groom them to become subject matter experts over a period of time. But you bring in consultants, you bring in the external knowledge to be able to shape that up, to be able to partner with large different kind of organizations, and it could be it never meant that you could only partner with a set of organizations for different problems. You could have different solutions, and hence different methodologies of partnering with different organizations. And I'm again reiterating the fact that it was all about partnering, and it was not about a vendor customer relationship, or it was not about a project. It was about a partnership with different organizations that one has to create to be able to sustain and run those initiatives for in the longer run, and do more. I am not game for bringing hundreds of partners and doing different things with different people. I firmly believe that you should have key strategic partners, a few, and but key strategic partners you should have, and in different segments, and you should work together with them to evolve and learn together as well, because then you should also give an opportunity to each other to be able to learn and experience things, explore things, and drive newer initiatives.
Right.
But it has
No,
to be a blend. It has to be a blend of your internal knowledge in your internal team, and the partner ecosystem.
right. So Ranjan, there is no right answer to this, and I think everybody is somewhere on this scale of in-house versus external versus startup. So everybody has their own journey, and I think because you've run this journey much longer, and with the experience that you come with your organization, I think it's a very very interesting view. We've seen what, a year and a half, or maybe slightly less of as you said, the traditional models of selling shutting down. Uh, we also covered the whole association bit, right? If we just take one more step back and say, okay, as government, right, what help, or what aid incentives would you be keen to look at, to see if at all, was there something, if there was a wish list, what would that wish list look like?
I think government already has started playing a much larger role in this technology space. I remember I had never in my life participated in a technology forum organized by government uh, until last year, and at such a large scale where they did an AI and machine learning event. Government of India did that, and that's amazing. That shows the seriousness from the government to be able to pursue some of these new age technologies. I think they are doing a fair bit of thing in terms of bringing in digital at the fore, right from the whole of the taxation system to whole of uh, the payment space. But I think what is important is it's also about most of these initiatives are still pretty much there in the larger cities. It is definitely penetrating gradually and gradually in the smaller cities and the rural areas. But I think there needs to be a much larger push in terms of uh, going back and communicating or creating campaigns to be able to reassure people that this is going to help, because many a times what happens is with all of these technology, where it has its benefits, it also has its drawbacks, and people are worried about it. So it's also about for the government to be able to create those mechanisms to be able to manage and catch hold of those frauds, those risks that are cropping up because of this, and be able to deal with it at a much early stage, and reestablish the confidence that people need in terms of adopting technology, because technology is given, you have to adopt it. Can we live without technology today? We are all surrounded by technology. It is all across, from the time we wake up in the morning, or even before we wake up in the morning to the time we go to bed. You are always there with technology in some shape and form. So the adoption will only come in once we are able, or the government is able to allay those fears and create those mechanisms to be able to deal with those the negative things which are pulling it back, or which is still creating that some amount of fear in people's mind in terms of adoption.
Right. No, no, would echo that view. We've partnered with the government across sectors as well, and maybe for the first time again, we are seeing them being very, very positive and proactive. about talking to industry leaders and engaging with them, and not just doing solutions in a silo. We've all heard of how the last 1 year has accelerated the pace of transformation. People, there are multiple quotes out there that 10 years worth of transformation has happened in 3 months or 6 months or whatever it is. Now that this pace has been set, how do you see this pace going forward?
I think this is not something which is this is not something which is sustainable. Maybe I would say the word sustainable. The same pace. One, because what this has also done is this has created a huge amount of pressure on people. But definitely, what it has also done is it has brought in a culture of technology adoption, an openness towards adopting technology. So this will open up a lot many more avenues. But what I think is also about there are a lot of short-term things which has also happened within this last 1.5 years. I think the larger transformation journeys, which where it needs to sustain, is also about going back and doing some of those bigger initiatives. A lot of organizations will have to adopt because that has been put on a back burner at the moment, and that needs to come back because um, that's the core platform on which you are able to scale. Had we not created that platform earlier, we would not have been able to do the amount of innovation or the amount of technology that we've been able to bring in the last 1.5 years. So that fabric, which is there, that underlying fabric in terms of the core infrastructure, the core technology layer, has to be there, and that needs to be kept because that has changed a big time with these new adoptions or the new initiatives that we have taken. That base layer has to change and it has to scale up. It has to become much more stronger to be able to
Right,
support that and future growths.
right. How has your organization started to view IT differently?
Uh, I think it's I would say the organization has accepted that, and the organization, we were always uh, in the journey of saying we want to stay a step ahead in terms of technology adoption. Uh, our organization having a lot of youngsters, very young people within the bunch of people who and smart, and these guys have different aspirations. They look at technology in a very different way. I think the biggest challenge for us, one big challenge, is also about how do you simplify those traditional technologies to work like maybe a Facebook or a WhatsApp, as seamless, as simple. And that's the ask for these young people. And yes, they that's their adoption has improved. They are much more forthcoming, but then at the same time, they are posing that relevant question to us as well, saying, what are you doing with these technologies where if I have to use an SOP, I have to still go and work on my laptop on in a such a way which is not very much acceptable to me. I want to use an SOP in the way how I am using a Facebook or
Right.
Instagram for that matter.
So Ranjan, just summarizing and using convergence as a theme, it's been a great conversation so far. Some very important points in terms of learnings and your journey. But just in terms of closing comments, right? How do you see this theme playing out in the short term? I'm not going to ask you how things are going to look like 1 year, 3 years down the line, because I think our learning from last year has been all those questions have changed. But how do you see convergence playing a critical role in how you design your digital transformation journey in the short term?
So I think the way how it has become much more critical and the way how it has changed big time is there has been a larger participation which has come in from many more teams, many more people who are needed as part of the convergence to quickly come up with ideas, thrash it, uh, convert the idea into an actionable, create a minimum viable product, roll out, and then maybe keep learning from there. It is not about creating that mammoth monolithic application or a solution which used to take us 6 months, a year's time to be able to build it. But it's all about doing things quicker, doing things faster, bringing everyone together. taking each other's views so that you don't get into those multiple layers of discussion. You don't get into those multiple layers of ideations and testings and things like that. Bring everyone together into a room and do things much, much more faster. So I think that's the way how life has changed. And the participation has also changed big time because people have started appreciating that uh, the work that they are doing and the tools that they are using, they have to converge together to be able to give them a better experience. They need to converge together to be able to make them efficient. They need to converge together to give them opportunity to be able to do more and better things in life.
Brilliant, Ranjan. I think great way to summarize this session. Thank you again. Was lovely seeing you. Thank you so much for your time, and I wish all of you well. Take care. Stay safe.
Thanks, Satya.